Chapter 1. The Dream of Fame. Evan Cole sat beside the train window and watched the fields pass by. The sun was going down slowly, painting the sky with orange light. He was leaving his small hometown forever. He had no money, no friends, and no one waiting for him. But he had one strong dream: to become famous. He wanted the world to know his name. He wanted to be rich, respected, and remembered. He whispered to himself, "One day, people will talk about me." The train stopped for a few minutes at a quiet station. An old man entered the compartment and sat across from Evan. His eyes were calm, and his face looked tired but wise. He smiled softly and said, "You are going to the city, aren't you?" Evan nodded and replied, "Yes, I'm going to Boston. I'm going to become a writer." The old man looked outside for a moment and then said in a slow voice, "Every dream has a price, young man. Be careful what you wish for." Evan smiled and tried to act confident. "I'll pay any price," he said. "I just want success." The old man did not answer. When Evan looked again, the man was gone. He didn't even see him leave the train. For a second, Evan felt a strange chill, but he quickly forgot it. He told himself that he was imagining things. His future was waiting, and nothing could stop him now. When Evan reached Boston, the city lights filled his eyes. Everything looked big and fast. People walked quickly, cars moved nonstop, and the air was full of noise. He felt small but excited. He stayed in a cheap room and started working at a cafe during the day. At night, he wrote short stories about people, pain, and dreams. He believed that his words could change his life. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Evan sent his stories to many publishers, but no one replied. He started feeling lonely. Sometimes he thought about the old man on the train. His words echoed in his mind. Every dream has a price. But Evan refused to give up. He believed his big chance would come soon. One night when he was walking back to his room, a black car stopped near him. A woman's voice called from inside, "Are you Mr. Evan Cole?" He froze for a moment. The door opened, and a tall lady stepped out. She wore a long silver coat and had sharp eyes. "My name is Veronica Hale," she said. "I read one of your stories in a small magazine. You have talent. Come to my house tomorrow. I want to introduce you to people who can help you." Evan could not believe his luck. He had dreamed of this moment for months. Finally, someone important had noticed him. He thanked her again and again. Veronica smiled and said softly, "Don't thank me yet. Let's see if you can survive in our world." Then she got back into her car and drove away. That night, Evan couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about her words. Our world. What did she mean by that? He didn't know, but he didn't care. His heart was full of hope. He stood near the window, looking at the city lights, and whispered, "My dream has just begun." Far away, on a quiet street, a man stood under a broken streetlight. It was the same old man from the train. He looked at the sky and smiled sadly. "The dream has begun," he murmured, "and so has the price." Then he slowly disappeared into the dark. Like, subscribe, and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishenglish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 2. A Door to the Rich World. The next morning, Evan woke up early. His hands were shaking from excitement. He kept looking at the piece of paper where he had written the name Veronica Hale. He had checked it again and again during the night, afraid it might disappear like a dream. He ironed his only clean shirt, brushed his hair, and walked out into the busy streets of Boston. His heart was beating fast, but he felt proud. Today could change everything. When he reached Veronica's house, his eyes grew wide. It was not a house. It was more like a palace. Tall white walls, shining glass windows, and two men in black coats standing near the gate. One of them checked his name and let him in. Inside, the air smelled of perfume and flowers. People were laughing, holding glasses and talking softly. He stood near the door for a few seconds, unsure where to go. Then Veronica appeared. She was wearing a dark blue dress and looked confident, like someone who owned every room she entered. "Mr. Cole," she said warmly, "you came. I'm glad." He nodded quickly and followed her. She took him to a man with gray hair and a proud face. "This is Mr. Luther Grant," she said. "He's a close friend and a businessman. He helps many writers and artists." Mr. Grant shook Evan's hand firmly. "So you're the new talent Veronica mentioned. We like fresh ideas, Mr. Cole. The world needs stories that feel real." Evan smiled, trying to hide his nervousness. "I write what I see," he said softly. "I just want people to feel something." The man laughed. "Good answer. Come to my office next week. Maybe I'll find a place for your words." Evan could not believe his luck. It felt like doors were opening everywhere. The food, the laughter, and the elegant voices made him feel part of a different world. For the first time in his life, he wasn't invisible. Veronica stood near him and whispered, "You see, Evan? This world loves talent. Just play the game and you'll shine." Her words sounded sweet, but something about her smile made him slightly uncomfortable. That night, when he returned home, he couldn't stop thinking about her last sentence. Play the game. What kind of game was she talking about? He looked at the city lights and told himself not to worry. People like her lived in mystery, but maybe that's how rich people always were. 2 days later, Evan went to the cafe where he still worked in the mornings. When he opened his bag, he found something that made his hands cold. It was a small white envelope with no name on it. Inside was a single piece of paper with only one line written in neat handwriting. "They will use you before you use them." Evan looked around the cafe. No one was watching him. His heart started beating fast. Who had put that letter in his bag? Was someone following him? He folded the paper quickly and hid it inside his pocket. All day, the words echoed in his mind. That evening, he met Veronica again at a quiet restaurant. She looked calm and cheerful, as if nothing strange had happened. "Evan," she said, "Mr. Grant liked you. You're going to be famous soon. But remember, fame needs a brave heart. Can you handle it?" He smiled nervously. "I think so." She leaned closer and said, "Good. Then prove it." When Evan reached home, another letter was waiting on his table. He didn't remember locking his door, but it was closed. His name was written on the envelope in the same clean handwriting. He opened it slowly. The paper said only this: The game has started. He dropped the letter, his breath heavy. He didn't understand what was happening. Who was sending these notes? Why now, when everything was finally going right? He looked outside the window, and for a moment, he thought he saw the shadow of an old man standing near the streetlight. But when he blinked, it was gone. Evan whispered to himself, "I'm not afraid." He sat down and stared at his notebook. Deep inside, he felt a small fear growing, a fear he didn't want to name. The city looked beautiful that night, but something dark had quietly entered his life. Chapter 3. Shadows Behind the Smile. Evan Cole's life began to move faster after meeting Veronica Hale and Luther Grant. He was invited to more parties, introduced to more people, and surrounded by endless praise. Everyone called him the next big writer. He felt proud, but inside, something did not feel right. Every smile looked too perfect. Every word of kindness sounded practiced. Still, Evan told himself that this was how success looked. Days passed. Evan started spending more time at Veronica's grand home. Her friends talked freely around him. They told stories about their relationships, secrets, and rivalries. They laughed about people they hated and praised people they secretly envied. Evan stayed quiet and listened. Each story sounded like a ready-made chapter. But he knew they trusted him. He promised himself he would never betray that trust. One evening, while sitting alone in his small room, Evan found another white envelope under his notebook. His heart stopped for a second. It had the same handwriting as before. He opened it carefully. The paper said, "Write the truth. The world needs it." He looked around quickly, but the door was locked. He could not understand how the letter got there. He felt a strange mix of fear and temptation. The next day, at a dinner party, Veronica said something that made him uneasy. "You should write about the real world, Evan. People want honesty, not fairy tales." Her words echoed the same idea as the letter. He laughed softly and replied, "Maybe someday." She smiled in a way that felt almost cold. "Someday can come sooner than you think," she said. Later that night, Evan spoke with a woman named Clara Wynne, another writer from the same circle. She was charming but competitive. "You're lucky, Evan," she said with a playful tone. "Veronica doesn't help everyone. She must really like you." He smiled awkwardly. "She believes in my work, I guess." Clara leaned closer and whispered, "Just remember, people in this world love you until you become better than them." Then she walked away, leaving him with more questions. That same week, his publisher, Robert Dales, called him. "Evan, I read your short story," he said. "It's strong but safe. Readers want more truth. Write about what you see. Write about real people. That's how you'll rise." The word truth kept returning to him. In letters, in conversations, even in his own mind, Evan began writing small notes at night, pieces of conversations, hidden stories, things he had seen at Veronica's house. He told himself it was only for inspiration, but deep inside, he knew he was collecting their secrets. Sometimes he stopped and whispered, "I won't use this. I'm not that kind of writer." Yet his hand kept moving. The paper slowly filled with other people's pain. A week later, while returning home, Evan felt someone following him. He turned quickly, but the street was empty. A cool wind blew through the alley. When he reached his room, the window was open. On his table lay a third letter. This one said only, "Truth is not safe." Evan sat in silence for a long time. He wanted to throw all the letters away, but he couldn't. His mind was full of questions. Who was sending them? Were they warnings or instructions? And why did everyone suddenly want him to write about truth? He looked into the mirror. His face seemed tired and older. "You wanted fame," he said to his reflection. "Now it's coming to you. Don't be afraid." But even as he said the words, he didn't believe them. Something dark had started following him. Not a person, but an idea. And once it entered his mind, it refused to leave. Chapter 4. The Book That Should Not Exist. Evan Cole sat near his small desk and stared at the letters again. They were old now, their corners soft, their words sharp. Write the truth. The world needs it. Truth is not safe. Those lines kept ringing in his mind. He had not received a new letter for a week, but the silence felt heavier than the words. He wondered if the sender was watching him, waiting for him to act. Then one evening, his phone rang. It was his publisher, Robert Dales. "Evan, your last story did well," he said in his deep voice. "But it's time for something bigger. People don't want small tales. They want secrets, the real stories of real people. You live among the rich now. Write what you see." Evan hesitated. "You mean about them?" Robert laughed. "Why not? Change the names. Make it sound like fiction. No one will ever know." Evan hung up but couldn't rest. He looked at his papers full of hidden truths. Names, lies, whispers. It was wrong, he knew that. Yet, he felt that strange voice inside whispering, "Do it." He remembered Veronica's proud smile, Luther Grant's controlling tone, Clara Wynn's jealousy. He had everything he needed to build a story that could make him famous overnight. Still, a quiet fear lived inside him. That night, while he was writing, the lights in his room blinked for a second. The sound of the clock stopped. He felt a chill on his neck. Slowly, he turned and saw nothing there. He told himself it was just his tired mind. When he looked back at his notebook, something was lying on the page. It was a gold pen he had never seen before. A small note beside it said, "Finish what you started." The handwriting was the same as the letters. His hands began to shake. Days passed, and Evan couldn't resist anymore. He began writing a book he called The Book of Truth. He wrote at night, closing all windows and locking the door. Every sentence felt like a sin, yet every line made him feel powerful. The words flowed fast, as if someone else was guiding his hand. He wrote about secret affairs, fake kindness, and the pain behind the laughter of rich faces. He didn't even change all the names. One evening, Clara Wynn visited him suddenly. She looked curious. "I heard you're writing something new," she said. "Can I see it?" He closed the notebook quickly. "It's not ready," he replied. She smiled, but her eyes turned sharp. "Be careful, Evan. The truth bites back." Before leaving, She touched the gold pen and whispered, "Nice gift." He hadn't told anyone about it. His heart pounded as she walked away. After she left, Evan checked his pages. One sheet was missing. He searched everywhere, but it was gone. Later that night, when he opened his window, the wind blew hard and a single paper came flying back in. On it were his own words, but the ink had turned red. The missing page had returned, changed, as if warning him. He fell to his knees. "What am I doing?" he whispered. But it was too late. The book was almost finished. He looked at the gold pen on his desk. Its shine was dull now, almost dark. The words on the last page burned in his eyes. Once the truth is told, nothing stays the same. He closed the notebook and pressed his hands against it. "This book should not exist," he said quietly. But deep inside, he knew the book would soon be printed. And when it was, his world would never be the same again. Chapter 5. Fame That Hurts. The morning sun entered Evan's room through half-open curtains. His new book, The Book of Truth, had just been released. He stared at the printed copy on his table. His name was shining on the cover. For a moment he smiled. All his hard work, all those long nights, were finally real. He whispered, "I did it. I'm finally someone." By evening, everything changed. People were talking everywhere. Newspapers printed reviews calling his book bold, dangerous, and too real. Some called it a masterpiece, others a crime. Evan read every line with shaking hands. He felt both proud and afraid. Deep inside, he knew that the people in the story were real. Veronica, Luther, and others who had once trusted him. That night, his phone rang nonstop. Some congratulated him, others shouted at him. Veronica's voice finally came through, cold and angry. "Evan," she said slowly, "you promised to respect our world. How could you do this?" He tried to explain. "It's fiction, Veronica. I changed the names." She laughed bitterly. "Do you think people are stupid? Everyone knows who you wrote about." Then the line went silent. The next few days became a storm. Every party, every newspaper, every television channel spoke about Evan Cole. Some called him brave, some called him evil. His publisher, Robert Dales, smiled proudly. "You did it, Evan. You're famous now. This book will sell forever." Evan looked at him and said quietly, "At what cost?" Then came the worst news. One evening, while reading an online article, Evan saw a headline that made his heart stop. Eleanor Pierce found dead. She was one of the women whose secrets he had used in his book. The report said she had collapsed after reading her part in the story. Her family said she couldn't take the humiliation. Evan dropped his phone. He couldn't breathe. The room felt smaller. He ran outside into the cold night, the streets blurry through his tears. People recognized him. Some smiled and waved, thinking, dang, he was lucky. But inside him, something was breaking. He sat on a bench and whispered, "It's my fault. My words killed her." For the first time, fame felt like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. Later, Robert called him again. "You can't stop now, Evan," he said. "People love the drama. You must write a second book. Strike while the fire is hot." Evan shouted, "She's dead because of me." The publisher's tone didn't change. "That's not your problem. The world moves on. You should too." Evan hung up and threw the phone against the wall. It broke into pieces. The next morning, he received a small envelope with no address. His fingers trembled as he opened it. There was only one line written inside. "Your words were the knife." He closed his eyes and cried silently. He finally understood what the old man had meant on the train. Every dream has a price. Days turned into nights. He stopped going out. He ignored calls. The city outside kept moving, but his world had turned dark. Every page of his book felt like a sin carved into paper. He wanted to destroy all copies, but they were already everywhere. People were buying, reading, and discussing his pain like it was entertainment. Standing by the window, he whispered, "Fame doesn't heal. It only burns." His reflection looked back at him, tired and broken. Far away on the other side of the street, he thought he saw the same old man, Samuel Dean, standing under a light pole, watching quietly. When Evan blinked, the man was gone, leaving behind only a shadow. Evan sank to the floor and covered his face. The dream he had chased all his life had turned into something cruel. He had wanted the world to know his name. Now it did, but for all the wrong reasons. Chapter 6. The Fall of Evan Cole. Evan Cole woke up late the next morning. His phone was full of missed calls and angry messages. The book that once made him a star had now made him a target. People were calling him a liar, a thief, and a heartless man. The same faces that once smiled at him were now shouting his name with hate. His fame was turning into fire. When he stepped outside, reporters waited near his building. Cameras flashed in his face. One woman shouted, "Mr. Cole, is it true that you used real people's stories?" Another asked, "Do you feel guilty for Eleanor Pierce's death?" He couldn't answer. He just walked away with his head down, covering his face with his hands. Inside, he felt smaller than ever before. He went to Veronica's house, hoping she would at least listen. The guard at the gate stopped him. "Mrs. Hale doesn't want to see you," the man said. Evan tried to explain, but the guard turned away. A few days ago, that same man had smiled and opened the gate for him. Now, the door to that world was closed forever. Evan returned home and sat quietly for hours. The silence in the room was heavy. He remembered the old man's voice from the train. "Every dream has a price." He realized the truth of those words now. His dream had cost him everything: his friends, his peace, and even his name. One evening, Clara Wynne appeared at his door. She looked calm but serious. "I told you this world bites back," she said. He nodded. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone, Clara." She sighed. "Maybe not. But truth without mercy destroys people. You forgot that." Before leaving, she added softly, "People like us, writers, we carry the weight of what we create. You'll carry yours forever." That night, Evan couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, looking at the quiet street. Then he froze. Under the streetlight stood a familiar figure. Samuel Dean, the old man from the train. He was wearing the same dark coat. His face was calm, almost kind. Evan quickly ran outside, but when he reached the road, the man was gone. Only the smell of old paper and smoke hung in the air. The next morning, he got a letter in the same old handwriting. "Your truth has been told. Your price is paid." There was no name, no address, only that one line. Evan dropped the paper and sat on the floor. His hands were cold. He felt like the air around him was closing in. Days passed, and he stopped leaving the house. His publisher no longer called. Newspapers moved on to new scandals. The noise of fame was gone, replaced by deep silence. Evan sometimes laughed without reason, sometimes cried in the dark. He didn't know what was real anymore. The letters, the book, or his guilt. He picked up his gold pen, the one that had started it all. Its shine had faded completely. He whispered, "You gave me fame, but you took everything else." He placed it back on the table and turned off the light. In the darkness, he thought he heard a whisper, a familiar voice saying, "It's not over yet." He opened his eyes wide. "Who's there?" he shouted, but no one answered. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Evan stood near the window, staring at the storm. The city lights looked far away, like another world he could never reach again. His fall was complete. Fame had ended, and loneliness had taken its place. Chapter 7. The Truth in the Letters. Days turned into weeks. The world had stopped talking about Evan Cole, but he couldn't forget what had happened. His name was still known, but now it carried shame. He spent most of his days sitting near the window, watching the empty street. He didn't write anymore. The gold pen still lay on the table, silent and lifeless. Sometimes he picked it up and stared at it, waiting for another letter to appear. But no letter came. Then one morning, a knock broke the silence. When he opened the door, there was no one there. Only a small brown envelope lying on the floor. His heart began to race. He picked it up and saw the same familiar handwriting. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside were all the old letters, the ones that had once warned him. But now every page was blank. Only one line stood at the bottom of the last sheet. "Your prayer is answered." Evan stared at those words for a long time. The ink looked fresh, as if someone had written it moments ago. He whispered, "What prayer? What answer?" His mind replayed everything. The train ride, the old man, the strange letters, the fame, and the death. He suddenly realized that every event was connected. It was as if someone had planned this entire journey, from his first dream to his final fall. Later that day, he went out for a walk. The world looked the same, but he felt different. He passed a bookstore and stopped when he saw his book in the window, the Book of Truth. People still bought it, still read his pain like a story. He entered the store quietly and touched one copy. The shopkeeper smiled. "It's a bestseller," he said proudly. Evan nodded but said nothing. Inside, it felt like touching a wound that refused to heal. As he walked home, he saw a man sitting on a bench near the park. It was Samuel Dean, the old man from the train. Evan froze. Slowly he walked closer. The man smiled gently. "You learned your lesson, didn't you?" he said. Evan's voice trembled. "Who are you? Why did you send me those letters?" The old man looked at the sky and replied, "I never sent them." "You did." Evan didn't understand. "What do you mean?" he asked. Samuel stood up and placed a hand on his shoulder. "We all write our own warnings," he said. "You knew the truth from the start, but you refused to listen. Now you have seen what happens when a dream becomes bigger than the heart." Then the man began to walk away. Evan tried to follow him, but when he turned around, the bench was empty. The old man had vanished once again, just like on the train. Evan stood still for a long time. For the first time, he felt no anger, no fear, only understanding. The words, "Your prayer is answered," finally made sense. He had asked for fame, and he had received it, but fame had taken everything else away. That night, Evan returned home and looked at his reflection. His eyes looked older, wiser, and full of quiet sadness. He took all the blank letters and placed them inside a box. Then he whispered, "Thank you for the lesson." As he closed the lid, the gold pen rolled off the table and fell to the floor. Its tip broke, and a drop of black ink spread across the wood, like the end of a story finally written, like subscribe and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishenglish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 8. The Price of Every Dream. The night was quiet. A soft wind moved through the city, and the street outside Evan Cole's window glowed with yellow light. He hadn't written anything for months. His typewriter sat on the table, covered with dust. The same gold pen, broken and dry, rested beside it. Every time he looked at it, he remembered the words that had destroyed and then rebuilt him. Your prayer is answered. Evan had once believed that fame would fill the emptiness inside him. Now he knew that fame only made emptiness louder. The letters had stopped, but their silence still spoke. He often thought about Samuel Dean, the old man who had appeared and vanished like a shadow. Was he real, or was he the voice of his own conscience? Evan didn't know. But one thing was clear. That man had saved him from becoming something far worse than a failed writer, a man without a soul. One evening, Evan went out to walk near the park. Life around him had moved on. People laughed, children ran, and shops stayed open late. No one cared about his story anymore. That thought gave him peace. For the first time, he felt free. As he sat on a bench, a woman approached him. She looked familiar. Maya Reed, one of the few kind people he had met before the fame. She smiled gently. "You look calmer now," she said. Evan nodded. "I finally stopped chasing what was never mine." Maya sat beside him. "You know, I read your book again," she said softly. "There was pain in it, but also truth. People needed to see what lies behind fake smiles. Maybe it wasn't all bad." Evan smiled faintly. Maybe. But the cost was too high. Maya looked at him kindly. Then write again, but this time for yourself. Don't write to be seen. Write to heal. Her words stayed in his heart. That night, Evan returned home and took out a blank notebook. For a long time, he just stared at the empty page. Then he wrote the first line. This time, the truth will hurt no one. Days passed, and Evan started writing again. Not stories about others, but stories about hope, forgiveness, and peace. He wrote about people who lost everything and still found kindness. His words were simple, but they came from a cleaner heart. For the first time, he didn't send his work to any publisher. He just wrote because it made him feel alive. One morning, a soft knock came at his door. When he opened it, no one was there. On the ground was a small package wrapped in brown paper. Inside it was a brand new pen, silver this time, with a short note that read, "When you write with honesty, no one gets hurt." There was no name, no address. Evan smiled quietly. Maybe it was Samuel again, or maybe life itself had forgiven him. Months later, people began hearing about a mysterious new author whose stories felt warm and pure. The books carried no name, only the words, written by a man who learned the cost of his dreams. Readers loved them. They said the words touched their hearts and healed old wounds. Evan watched from afar, never claiming his fame again. He didn't want the spotlight. He only wanted peace. One rainy night, he walked to the old bookstore where the Book of Truth was once displayed. The shelves had changed. His old book was gone. Instead, on the front table, lay a new one, The Man Who Wanted Everything. He opened the first page and saw a single line. To those who dream too hard, remember the price. Evan's eyes filled with quiet tears. He closed the book gently and whispered, "Yes, the dream was answered, and the price was paid." He stepped out into the rain. The streets were empty, but he didn't feel lonely anymore. The rain touched his face like forgiveness. He walked slowly toward the station, carrying the silver pen in his pocket. As he reached the platform, the wind blew stronger, and the world around him felt strangely familiar. He looked to his right, and there stood Samuel Dean once more, smiling as he had years ago. "It's time?" Evan asked softly. The old man nodded. "You've written your last line, my friend." Evan smiled back. "Then I'm ready." The train lights appeared in the distance. Evan stepped forward, calm and free. The whistle echoed like a closing chapter. When the train passed, the platform was empty. Only a small silver pen remained on the bench, glimmering under the soft yellow light. Moral: every dream has a price. But peace begins when you stop chasing the world and start listening to your soul. Like, subscribe, and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishenglish.com, link in the description.